Hi there, Vibe Gardeners. Welcome to another episode of Vibe Gardening Informal Edition, where this time we're going to talk about how to germinate your seeds using heat mats. And with that said, let's go. All right, gang. So this episode, we will be kind of doing a continuation here of the planting seeds in soil, controlling germination episode, where this time we're going to talk about how to use a heat mat for seeds that require warmer temperature than you normally might have in wherever you're germinating your seeds. And so this episode, naturally, we're going to talk about what is the use case for heat mat? Like when do you want to use it, how to use it, and kind of the precautions of it, kind of like a technical beginning of how to use a heat mat. And then we're going to go into practical steps of how to use a heat mat in germinating two of the crops that I need to start seeds on according to my schedule. That I'll link below. And then also a new technique that I've saw a lot of seen a lot of content creators out there doing that I want to be trying out. And yeah, later on I'll actually post more videos with updates on how that works out. So, and hopefully that's going to give you guys a good idea of when to use heat mat, give you the technique that has worked for me in the past, and then give you guys something new that I've discovered and that I'll continue keeping track of for you guys to look at in the future. With that said, here we go. All right, so first what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what is a heat mat and when is it useful and how to use it. So this right here, this is a very generic white label heat mat I was able to get on Amazon. I will link that below. And it literally has only one input, which is this normal power plug. It's even 2 prong. It's not even 3 prong because it's not really. I don't think it actually uses that much power compared to the normal household items. And this heat mat even has a lot. It's basically it because of the size of it. It prints on there all the information about it. It's got the instructions for it, warnings, and it also has basically kind of like some seed temperature range on things. Honestly, I don't even know why they have it in there because you didn't buy a heat mat to tell you days to germination. But here we are. And frankly, they even put a bunch of plants in here that will absolutely fail with heat mat, which is what we're going to talk about right now, which is when do you need a heat mat and how do you use it? So a heat mat is really for plants that you want to start indoors that are going to require temperature that is higher than what you have. So currently right now, my basement is about 65 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's going to be around that temperature until summer, which when it goes up a little bit, about low 70s maybe. So the temperature is stable and it is low. And currently right now, I have these three seeds I have here. I have the tomato, the same Marzano style tomato, and then I have eggplant or the black beauty type. And then here I have a dried uh, hatch pepper, New Mexican hatch pepper, that is saved from last year. This is the last one I have. And these guys, they need some pretty high temperatures. So this right here, so the tomato, generally speaking, they can actually still germinate between 60 and 70. Now, granted, at 65 degrees, it's going to be slower. So I've actually germinated these in the past using heat mat to kind of accelerate things to give me something like a speed that's not too depressing, and they worked out pretty well. Now eggplants, I didn't start it last year, but the temperature required for germination is actually quite high. Um, its ideal temperature is between 80 and 90 degrees for germination, which is yeah, we're not getting that in my basement ever. Any time of the year, we're not getting that. And then these New Mexico hatch peppers, they too have a pretty high germination temperature that they need to be working with. So these guys are prime candidates for using heat mats. Now, what would not be a good idea for using for heat mats are things like cool weather herbs, especially ones that will bolt, like parsley, cilantro. These are the ones that will absolutely fail if you put it under a heat mat. A lot of them will just basically stay dormant because they're like, screw it, I'm not this is just not the right condition for me, and they will not grow. So you do not want to use these on cold temperature plants, which is kind of funny because on this heat mat here, it's lists broccoli, cabbage, lettuce, parsley, spinach. Yeah, so these ones I just listed, they will absolutely not work with a heat mat of this temperature. Now this heat mat right here, I did use a touchless uh, thermometer to measure the temperature at the surface. This thing's surface gets pretty dang hot. It gets to be about, I think, close to 100, if not over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is too hot for most plants. And so if you're going to be putting, like my previous video on germinating seeds in soil, if you have soil buffering this heat mat to the seed, it'll be just fine. As I found out last year, I was able to germinate about 67 to 75% germination rate with my California Wonder bell peppers, and my tomato had about, which is ones that I've collected myself. Those two were getting about 2/3 germination rate, which is exactly expected from open pollinated seeds. So by putting your soil on here with the seed tray I demonstrated in my previous video, this will actually work just fine. But if you're going to put seeds directly on top of it, very few seeds will actually survive. And if that's the case that you're dealing with, then the one thing that can really help is to get yourself corrugated cardboard. Corrugated cardboard will be able to give you that buffering, that insulation you need to basically even out the temperature across the heat mat, and also bring the temperature down to whatever your seed can handle. Another technique is potentially putting vermiculite, which is the final topic I'm going to try to do, which is follow the example of other content creators using vermiculite at the bottom to take the heat and basically germinate according to that. And honestly, so once you see the seeds sprouting, that's the moment that you need to take the plants off the heat mat. Because one of the things that's going to happen is that a lot of time the seeds, the sproutings will become too leggy because of temperature. That's what happens when you leave plants on the heat mat for too long. And just because it likes a hot temperature to be able to thrive in, the reality is that temperature is actually the air temperature and not the soil temperature. Soil temperature is a whole different beast and significantly cooler. And even something like tomato does not enjoy having a soil temperature consistently above 80 degrees. That is not something that it enjoys. So this is why the moment you see your seeds germinate and sprout with cotyledons come out, you need to just take that sprouting off of the heat mat right away. And that's the best thing for your plants. And the reality here is the heat mat here is really just to wake the seeds up and get it into the sprouting stage, the seeding stage. And that's all it's meant for, nothing more. There's really just that couple-week period a year we're going to use this heat mat, and that's it. Then put it away. That's what these heat mats are for, and that's all you should be using them for. Unless you want to use it for, muscle relaxation or some other stuff. Yes, you can actually use these for other purposes like keeping your tea warm or, relaxing your muscles. But, we're not here to talk about that here on this channel, right? Talking about plants. So hopefully that's going to give you a good idea of how heat mats work. All right, so now that we know what heat mats do, another add-on you can get to a heat mat is this temperature-controlled outlet. This actually came from the kit that my sister-in-law got for me for Christmas. Thank you, Serena. So this actually is a separate add-on. And the heat mat that actually came with her gift is basically almost identical to what I have, possibly better quality. I'm not 100% sure, but it's rolled up in a row. So it's currently right now flattening out. But this right here is very useful in that it has one power 3-prong input. And then it has if you can see here, this is a 3-prong output out this way. And what it does is that it has a temperature probe here that has even a suction cup on it. So this temperature probe is going to be able to read the temperature it's at. And here with this controller, what it does is that you can set the temperature at which you turn the heat mat off. And this becomes extremely important when you don't have the corrugated cardboard to be able to control your temperature. And this would be able to help you specifically be able to tell your heat mat when to stop, which is extremely important because if you're going to be doing any direct seed on mat setup or some kind of a very low buffering technique, like the vermiculite one I'm going to try in a little bit, this is an absolute must for you to be able to use on your heat mat so that you're not going to cook your seeds. So this is an add-on that you should be considering, and I'll link something like this below in the description. All right, guys, so now that I have basically done a start like we said before, one of the things I did for sure this time is I made sure that I labeled my plants because let's be honest, I planted it now. Doesn't mean I'll remember what it is later, right? So I got 4 tomato plants here, which is about what I was planning. Probably will germinate more because my friends were asking for more. Eggplants, I'm only starting 2 trays here because I want to test the vermiculite technique later on with them, and then I have a bunch of hatch peppers here, but which I'll do this tray here. And the reason why I have 6 hatch pepper is that cell here is that pepper seeds don't, well, seedlings, they don't like competition. So you generally want only 1 seed per cell. And whereas with tomato and eggplant, I put about 3 seeds per tray in case any of them fell. And that way, you can, if they all come up, you can pick your most strong one to keep for later, right? You can thin them out. But the problem is peppers, all variant pepper, in general, they don't like competition, so they have to stay with only 1. And because of that, I'm doing 6 cells here, because that way it builds for redundancy, just in case some don't come up. So this is how I'm planning this tray here, and this one's going to get the traditional heat mat technique. All right, so now that we've put up our setup, kind of like we did with the planting seeds in soil, controlling germination video, in that everything here is planted the exact same way with a label so we know what it is. And then I put in my instrumentation here and put it on top of the heat mat. It just got turned on, so it's just, I can feel the warmth already coming from this thing. So now with the instrumentation, we can see exactly what the humidity is and the temperature. And got the vent again opened to make sure there's air breathing. And another important thing is make sure the wire on the heat mat is away from water. So right now I have the whole thing looping up above a good 2 feet above the whole entire germination tray here. So that way, just in case there's water, it's going to be elevated and away from everything. Because right here, the heat mat itself is safe with water. You still don't want to submerge it, but it's relatively waterproof due to the design. Right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to try that new vermiculite technique that I keep talking about. So because of the size of what I'm working with, I have 2 small Pyrex here and a Tupperware. They're pretty small, like you can see, it's the size of my hand. They're tiny. So, and that should be good enough for what we're doing here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use these fine vermiculite, sand-like. And I know there's a lot of debate out there about that. We'll have a whole nother episode on vermiculite in the future. But I'm using sand-like vermiculite. And I'm going to basically just dump a good portion of it and make a mess here. You know what? I'm going to take it over later. You only need to have a little bit on the bottom. Like that. You don't need to have much. Probably the wrong technique of doing it. And then what you want to do is you want to just put in some water. You want to make it so that it's kind of almost flooded, but not completely. So as you can see, it's kind of basically like a wet sand. Maybe a little bit more vermiculite in there. dry it up a little bit. Now it's like a little too clay. It's actually kind of harder to get the consistency right than it looks. Like playing with wet sand. It's kind of what this is. Okay, so now it kind of becomes sort of like that sandcastle-like texture here with this, where you can basically go to the beach and you expect kids to be able to play with this. And maybe not build a sandcastle with it, but it's wet enough to be able to make structures with it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sprinkling some of my pepper seeds on top. And give it a little room in between them if you can. It doesn't matter. Throw as much on there as you think you need to prove germination. And then what you can do is you can just basically sprinkle a little bit more vermiculite on top. You know, like that. Then take your spray bottle and spray on it. Now it has even wetness. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take some saran wrap. We're going to cover it up. And the key here is you don't want it to be too tight. Yes, humidity really helps in this case here. But the reality is you don't want it to be so airtight that you're choking the seeds of air. All right, guys, so there we have it. There is our vermiculite system on top of the heat mat I said I wouldn't be using, but because of where we are, I have this set up already to have it set at 82 degrees, which I know is a little bit, to be safe. So I've never done this before. I think 82 degrees is the right thing to do here. And what I've also done here was I made sure I have the temperature probe sticking in the vermiculite. I don't know how deep it is, doesn't quite matter, and I don't know how secure it actually is either. It's hard to secure that thing in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this thing, it's basically giving that consistent moisture. So this has the New Mexico hatch pepper, and this has the eggplants in there. We'll see if this creates a faster germination or a more even or better rate. We'll see how that works out. All right, guys, so there you have it. We have traditional usage of heat mat, and then we have my new vermiculite way of using heat mat. And so I hope that gives you guys a good idea of what heat mats are for, how to apply it to your germination and seed starting journey here. And like I said, make sure that you only use it for germination. Once you see any cotyledons start sprouting up, remove it right away. And then in a few days, I'm going to give you guys a follow-up on the conclusion of how the two test comes along as any of the sprouting comes up. With that said, keep gardening and keep vibing. Let's go.